Okay. Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, May 29th at 4 p.m. I'm Dave Lyons, the chairman of the committee, and I am calling to order the meeting for the Charter and Code Review Committee. This meeting is being convened in accordance with the rules of the state of Delaware and the town of Dewey Beach. The meeting is being live streamed via Zoom, as well as attendance here at the Life Saving Station in Dewey Beach, Delaware. We'll go ahead and start the meeting first with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and start a roll call of the committee members. Myself, Dave Lyons, President. Marcia.
Present.
Elaine Bull, present.
Thank you. Dan Malley. Dan is not here, and we do not have Jimmy O'Connor. He's not here currently. They may arrive, but we do have a quorum. The committee consists of 5. We have 3, so we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. Town officials online. See Dawn Hinks.
Yes, I am.
Jim Dedes. I know Jim's there. And our town manager, Bill Zolper. Here. Is Commissioner Persinger on?
No.
Okay. Not yet. And Fred Townsend? I don't see Fred either. Okay. So the first action is to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. So can I get a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Thank you, Marcia.
I second
Need a
it.
second? Okay,
Elaine Bull,
thanks, Elaine.
seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item is to approve the minutes from April 10th, 2024 from our last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I approve. Elaine Bull approves a motion to approve the minutes.
Marcia? Second, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, show votes, great. Okay. All right. At this time, I'll open the public meeting. At this point, we're just going to have any discussion items anyone wants to bring to the table that is not specifically on the agenda. We'll open specific public discussion to those agenda items as we proceed. So first, I want to start with any of the committee members. Anybody, committee members, have anything they want to discuss or bring up publicly? No? Elaine?
I'd like to publicly say that the volunteer of the year for Dewey, which was you, Dave, was a
correct.
fantastic choice. Congratulations.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, I appreciate it. As I said when I accepted, I have everybody here in the committee helps me out. I could never be successful without all the work here and everybody at Town Hall that really makes a difference in getting the job done every day, especially Bill. Thank you. And Kate, who keeps me on track. So, all right. Any comments from the public? Just general comments? Good. Good afternoon, David.
Hi, David Moskowitz, Dewey Beach, and I need to speak now because I have to go to a kindergarten event very shortly. Just real quick for agenda item 1, and just to give you some quick background. In the past, we had a situation where the county asked us to do work and find a licensed plumber back in 2015. So we found someone that presented themselves with a Dewey Beach business license as a licensed plumber, Coastal Services, but they actually were not a licensed plumber. And both the county and my HOA and myself went to the state. Nothing was done, and they're still a contractor in Dewey. And the county at the time complained because obviously they messed up county equipment. So I guess my question to you is, you want to have some business license verification, I saw from the news article and from the agenda item, but how do you accomplish it if the state couldn't accomplish it? And like in the past, Dewey was like, hey, we charge our fee, so we take a hands-off approach. Just something to figure, because in the past we dealt with, and also Coastal Services did at Izzy Plaza during an emergency, they were trying to charge people $1,100 an hour, and they got in trouble. So what power would the town have to regulate what's like a state license, like plumbing, And it just seems like whatever you do, you need to check with what state regulations permit. Because I know the county was very pissed with them, but there was nothing the county could do. And at the time, there was nothing the town could do if the state wasn't going to do anything. So I just wanted to call in because that experience still weighs on my mind, how someone could present themselves as a licensed plumber and they weren't. And Dewey still has a business license for them, and it doesn't say what they're licensed for, it just says business license. So I guess one thing you could do is in your business license, say what the contractor's licensed for, but I just don't know how you do what the state function. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, David. I think if you listen to the rest of the conversation, you're going to find a similar concern to what you said there. So let's go to the first agenda. If there's any more public discussion, just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. Okay. At this point, let's go to the first agenda item, which is discuss, proposal, and possibly vote to recommend to the town council adding verification of professional licenses for any contractors applying for a business license in the town of Dewey Beach. Just a little history. I think we all know this. This has been on the agenda for several times, and we bumped it back because there are other more pressing issues. So I just want to try and bring closure to this. If you recall, I think where we left this is we were going to ask the town officials to kind of comment on the feasibility of this this item. And so, Bill, Dawn, somebody want to just kind of weigh in on this for us?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So I've discussed this with both Jim and Dawn about the verification. Dawn has done some background and work on this, and I would ask her to inform the committee about that. Dawn?
Sometimes can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, yes, it can be a daunting task to go through the site when it comes to the state of Delaware. Ultimately, the state of Delaware has not asked the municipalities to verify the varying licenses and so forth. Yet at the same time, there are certain requirements that the state does have, and they're state requirements. As Mr. Moskowitz did bring up, the fact that to be able to many times search through the actual state of Delaware site, that is quite an overwhelming task and not a whole lot comes up. So that is going to be a problem when it comes to staff time and effort that I don't know as if that could be totally accomplished without some sort of help, solutions, ideas coming from the public, coming from other officials.
Okay.
Dawn, could you explain what the town does when somebody comes in for a business license?
When they come in, they are to present not only a written application, within that application, they are to present their state of Delaware business license as well. And so that does become part of the record for the town of Dewey Beach. Yet at the same time, before a building permit is issued by the town, we do verify that they have, at least currently, added all of this information concerning their state of Delaware business license.
Thank you, Dawn.
Okay. Any further comment from anybody in the town? No? Okay. Elaine, I think, you brought this to the committee and we kind of kicked it around. Do you have any specific comments from your side that you want to bring up?
Yeah, actually looking for a license, a professional license, whether it's an HVAC, electrical, or plumbing, all you have to do is type the name in. But that is a process. I think that for the town, and I think that I'm going to vote for this, recognizing that you all may not want to go forward. But the license, when they come in and they fill out a professional license, that there can be, are you an electrician? And they have a card that they should present or scan so that and signing that they actually, this is true. And they would add that to the process. I don't think it would be, if they have any requirements in the state to be licensed for doing the work that they're doing. I don't see it as burdensome, and I think it would be a great thing for owners. But what we do, because as an association, we make sure, of course, that they have the Delaware State business license, that they're insured, that they're bonded, and that they actually have all of those licenses. Anytime we're doing common work, we do that work. But I do see over and over again that individuals will just go, oh, you have a business license, that's fine. And they have no idea. I actually have a situation going on in our condo right now, and a plumber that we've never seen the license, they've done work, and that the ceiling in my bathroom is coming down a bit because they didn't put the toilet in correctly. So now we have the common area being affected, going into another unit. So what we do is we have plumbers that come in and only work in these situations that do have a license. But I thought that it would be a good thing to help somebody like David, who's actually quite experienced in this kind of stuff, to see that at least when they got a business license and they said they were going to work as an electrician or a plumber, that they actually had that license. Now, whether or not getting any deeper than that, I don't think there's an obligation of the town to do that. But that's all I have to really say about it.
Okay. Marcia, any comments?
I guess I'm just wondering about the layer of how we're going to manage that with the town. So, Bill, I wanted to know what your feeling was.
My personal feeling is if you're an HOA president or you're a homeowner, and you're hiring somebody to do the work, it's your responsibility to find out if they're an electrician, just like you should try to find out if they're a licensed electrician and if they've done good work or not in the past. I think that's really on the consumer to do that instead of the town. That's my opinion. They'll be up to the committee on how you want to recommend it to the commissioners, though. I don't know if Jim has any comments.
Well, I tend to agree with you, Bill, because we do get, even with licensed people that have their license, we get complaints from homeowners that, my contractor is doing a terrible job. What am I supposed to do? I said, you really have to dig in. Just because they have a license doesn't mean they're going to do great work. And, I live outside of the Dewey Beach, and I live in Rehoboth. But when I hire a contractor here, who am I going to call? The county does he have a license? It just doesn't work that way. I rely on word to mouth of whether they've done a good job or not. And and the electricians I use, for example, are all licensed. I know that, and I know who they are. But I try to get reputable people to come in. It's when sometimes you get somebody that's not so reputable, and they may have a license and you still have a problem. But I think the responsibility is on the homeowner to make sure that they bring in the correct person in. We can do a little bit better and demand a license at a time when they find a building, when they file for a business license. I guess we can demand that, and I don't see a problem with that. But that doesn't mean that they're going to do good work.
Right.
So those are my comments.
That's exactly, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's exactly all I'm asking. I think that it's a fantasy to think somebody that has a license is necessarily going, one person with a license does better work than another person with a license. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone playing with electricity or doing professional jobs that the state does have laws that aren't necessarily enforced that don't have the license to do so. So just getting their card, what they should be plumbers are supposed to carry around, and so are electricians, when you're getting a business license, I think would be great. It says nothing else. And if they're complaining to you about contractors that do have the right professional license, that's not your problem. I totally understand that. It's not the town's problem. They can do a personal civic, listserv saying no, not to use a certain contractor, but that has nothing to do with the government running the municipality. rating them.
Elaine, I have a follow-up question. If the person fails, let's say it's an electrician coming in to apply, and they apply for the business license but don't have the state credential, do you want the town not to issue the license?
If the job that they're, if the license, if you have the check mark, I'm a business license for an electrician, and they don't have the, a driver's license, they're, you know, they're gonna arrest them for that, but we don't have that level of policing. But definitely that they shouldn't be given a business license if we go to this putting down the category of business license they're getting. So you saw that somebody like David thought they had a business license, they represented themselves as an electrician, but he didn't ask to see their qualifications because he assumed when they got the business license that they had showed their qualifications to the town to get that license.
Just a comment, I think that makes it a little more complicated. So I understand what you're looking for, Elaine, and I do feel like most of it is really on the responsibility of the consumer. I just want to pose another situation, such as I've hired a general contractor, or anyone hires a general contractor, and they get their license through the town as the general contractor, but they are permitted to pretty much hire whatever subs they want working under them. And those can include up to 10 or more tradespeople. They're going to be roofers, electricians, plumbers, flooring people. And I would, or the town would never see their licenses because it's really the responsibility is, and how the hierarchy goes is when the general contractor goes in to get his license for a project, that he has a license with the state. We issue a license for him locally because the state has granted him a license, but he now is fully responsible. And I want to say, put yourself into the shoes of the consumer. That general contractor equals the consumer. If you're not hiring a general contractor, he is essentially the consumer in that role. And he's responsible to validate that all of his subs have the appropriate business license, town license, state county license, and professional license. So what I just want to say is that I don't know how we would separate those, because that also means another layer of general contractors that come in have to present all the subs with licenses. And it doesn't mean, I might be starting a project that takes a year or two. It doesn't mean those licenses will be kept up. So there's really no process. That license is only current from the day they apply. And I think that goes for all licenses. It doesn't mean that tomorrow their license isn't pulled, revoked, expired. We don't have any way to check that. And I think it really does open Pandora's box of all the layers. How do we now check the licenses for all the subs? And how is that done fairly? And I think, you know, in government, we really have to do things consistently and fairly. So I think if you look at, I'm a general contractor or I'm a consumer, we both have the same level of responsibility for those working on our job and under us. I want to just also note something about a plumbing license in the state of Delaware. When you get a plumbing license, it is issued by Health and Human Services because it has to do with waste and wastewater, and they are very strict. For example, if I hire a plumber and I get either my general contractor or myself the Dewey Beach license to do work on my job, and my plumber leaves halfway through the job, I cannot get another plumber onto the job for 6 months unless my plumber physically cancels his license himself. So not to say whether that's right or wrong, I've been in that situation. You literally could be held hostage by Health and Human Services licensing provisions, which means that no license for that plumbing job can be issued for a 6-month period until that license period expires. So, you know, there's so many more layers than I think what's being presented. And for that reason, I just really think it comes down to the consumer, the general contractor, we've all had really good contractors and not so good. And even when we check, it doesn't always mean, you know, I've had them where halfway through the job, they just fail. They just go MIA. They
Right.
start other jobs. It's, you know, I really am left to make the decisions of what to do at that point.
Exactly.
So I think, Elaine, if you look at it through the other level of all these general contractors that are managing these projects and have subs, I don't know any way we could or would feasibly be able to be responsible at that level.
That's okay.
My alarm's set.
I wanted to just say that, that first of all, individual license that we were talking about, individual license, a contractor, like for instance, Diamond has to make sure with the state that they are a mechanical company. So anybody that works for them, they have to make sure that they're licensed. If you're talking about like Apple, or you're talking about big contractors, they have that responsibility. But I'm going to just circle back and say this. If there is no inclination to actually, and I want to get the quality thing that you guys keep bringing up, quality, no. It's just that a business license, you think somebody says they're going to be working in the town, they're an electrician, they say, we have a business license. They represent or misrepresent themselves, and I've seen it over and over again, that business license signifies that they are a licensed plumber in the state or a licensed electrician. I had said, and I dealt with this years ago, so this is like an old issue. And there was no kind of push to actually add this to the business license. So I suggested the language on the business license should clarify that this license is a business license to operate. It's like a fee, basically. It's a tax. So that anyone that sees that they have a business license, and we have it on our website, is that this does not signify that they have a license in Delaware to do electrical work or whatever. And that way there's kind of buyer beware. Because there is no question that with 46 units and a lot of owners and just being around town, I've been told over and over and over again how people either have work done with a handyman that is doing electrical work that endangers all of us, and plumbing work, as you say, with the thing. So I would say if we could just do that instead of anything more, that would be, to me, a compromise.
So I'm going to weigh in here. I'm not comfortable with the town validating licenses or people's credentials. I'm not in favor of giving the town more to worry about with what's involved. If the town feels like as part of the business license process they want to ask, I'll leave that back to the town to say that. But I'm not comfortable making a recommendation to the commissioners that force this point. I get the concern about the quality of contractors, but to me, when I hire a contractor, it's up to me. I don't hold the town accountable for who I hired, what work they did, or anything like that. As much as I'd like to call Jim Dedes and have him come over and supervise my contractors, I don't think he's going to do it. So
that again, I find actually a bit. It's not the point I'm making. So when I hear that, it just kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit, because you're not asking for that. You're just asking that if the Dewey is giving a license, a business license, that they should actually be giving a business license for some trade, and that they're getting them to show.
So let me interrupt you for a minute. How many trades are there that we're asking the town to capture? How many different trades? How many different?
I said that
businesses?
background to you. There's 3 I can tell you for healthcare. We don't have really an issue with that. Like for instance, somebody coming in and taking care of your elderly person, electrician, and HVAC. Those were the 2. Well, the 3 that I did with the preliminary research. So we're not talking about, you don't have to have a license to do handyman work,
So let me go back
a state license.
to Bill, Jim. Are those 3 licenses something that you could consider asking for at the time for those 3? Or if the preference is no, then you just need to state it.
Shouldn't it be up to the person contacting that individual?
I mean, the town has a lot to do up front. I think I heard Elaine say that she thinks we ought to at least put something on that the business license says all this is a Dewey Beach business license. It's not a contractor's, certification in electricity or plumbing or heat and air or whatever else you need a license for in the state. If it was easy to do, I think other towns would be doing it. I know it would put more work on our front office staff. Again, I think it's the responsibility of the consumer to check to see if the person you're hiring to do electrical work is actually a licensed state electrician, certified.
I also think it might add liability for the town that they're validating someone has a current specialty license. I believe that outside of some of those 2 or 3 specialties, Elaine, that, and I may be wrong, but this is what I believe is true, that I could go or you could go and be licensed as a general contractor tomorrow in the state of Delaware if we had appropriate insurance. I could be licensed as a carpenter. I could be licensed as a roofer. I don't believe the state of Delaware has any requirements for passing a test in those trades or specialty licenses, while other states do, some do. So I think there is a little bit of accelerated liability if we're asking the town to validate specialty licenses, because I believe you can only validate their current status the day you validate the license.
So I'm gonna try and, because we've spent half the 30 minutes on this and we've talked about it multiple times before, so I want to get to some conclusion on it. So I see 2 alternatives. One, that we add to the permit that some disclaimer that says this business license is not a verification of the individual's qualifications. So that's the first thing I'm hearing. The other would be to formally recommend to the commissioners that the town, that we ask the town to validate licenses, at least for the 3 trades we discussed. So I guess what I want to do is I'm going to go in reverse order. So I'm going to ask for, is there an interest in making a recommendation in just modifying, let's say, the business application that says we're not qualifying this individual's skills?
I would support that.
That's one line on this, on the.
Right, that's one line on the application,
It
right?
actually takes the town out of being
Right.
accountable for anything.
Right. Elaine?
I'm
Is that-
perfectly satisfied with that. The language has to be a little bit different, but yes, that this is a validation of that they're certified professional licenses, whatever the
Okay.
but yes, that would be something that'd be great. I think
Okay.
that would help and that would make everybody happy. The town didn't have to
Okay.
do any more and it was there.
Okay.
It has to be on the website.
So I'm just gonna ask for a formal vote here that we recommend to the commissioners that the permit application note that the town is not validating the individual's credentials, but just the fact that they have a business license in Dewey Beach. Does that recommendation sound fair and accurate to everyone? Okay, so I just need just a quick vote. Elaine, is that acceptable?
That's acceptable to me.
Great. Marcia?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Okay, and I'll also approve that. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elaine, for your patience with us as we get through it. All right, let's move
I
on.
have old language I can share later with.
You can, Elaine, if you want to send that to me, if you want to send it, I'll be happy to include it in the minutes and send that recommendation forward to the commissioners. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next agenda. Discuss and possibly vote to recommend to the town council amendments to the town code regarding downspout placement and runoff water control. I did post a document for everyone online. I think Jimmy's got it. I'm hoping everyone's got it. Let me just give a minute of background on this. I was contacted by Jim at Code Enforcement about one of the neighbors who was concerned about water flowing into his property from his neighbors. And this individual actually had drain corrugated running directly to the lot, to the end of the lot, which flowed directly into his lawn. There's nothing in our code today that manages that in any way. There's nothing there that says how far back it is, or anything like that. So there's very little we can do to help that individual. I've also attended commissioner meetings, and I've heard a lot of concerns about stormwater runoff from one property into the other, and a lot of frustration from people that there's nothing there to be able to help manage that and control that. So my suggestion, and we did a little research here with just what was in the town code at Bethany, and Jim Didi's helped pull some of this for me. But I'll just kind of point out a couple of things in the Dewey Code and see if any of them perhaps stick with us. Once I go through these, Dawn, Jim, I'm going to ask your opinion on that, and then we'll go around the room and kind of ask the commissioners or the committee members their opinions. So the alternatives, just so you take a look at this, is first, I think this is about stormwater management. It's essential that flooding be stabilized at its current level as systems are developed to resolve prior conditions. Therefore, site preparation for new single-lot residential construction will include 2 or more of the following described techniques, which are intended to detain water on site. So the first is the installation of a French drain, which is basically, I don't know all the mechanics, but it seems like it's a trench around the house, and the water is routed into that trench and it flows down. The second is to convert or divert downspouts into a dry well on the site, which I guess is, I'll use it like a septic tank where the water all goes into a septic tank and drains out the bottom, or is processed that way. The third, which is the one I've seen, which is downspouts, connect downspouts to a perforated plastic pipe buried in the lawn area and emerging at a point away from the house, or I've seen some that they basically have like a plug on the outside where the water drains out, and if it doesn't drain fast enough, it comes out the top, and that is placed far enough away from the line so it's not to flow into a neighbor's yard. So those were the couple of options I had. I first want to pass it to, I guess first, I'm going to pass it to the town if everybody's okay with that. So Dawn or Jim, can I ask you to opine on this for me?
Who do you
I
want
can
to go
start.
first? Okay.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Just in the respect that we all, first of all, need to remember that Dewey is directly on a water area, and we are going to continue to have a water problem. That is just going to be a natural occurrence that's many times with what many folks are calling climate change is affecting. And so, yes, we need to be able to have as much beneficial flow in the direction away from our neighbors. Other communities have used the exact same configurations that you spoke with the piping and so forth, the French drain and those kind of flows. And so it has been beneficial. But overall, we can only help to possibly improve the situation, not cure the situation, because of where we're located on the shore. So also swales, just the gullies that in between the properties many times have helped ones to not have major downspout flows come from the neighbors. And so ultimately with a lot of this, it is kindness and consideration from one neighbor to another when it comes to downspouts and flow of water from off the properties. So sometimes properties are naturally lower than the others. So we do need to work in the direction of trying to be cognizant of having water to flow into rain gardens, into other areas that many of the surveyors do have potential assistance or ideas in which to help this situation, not necessarily cure the situation.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Well, having had firsthand knowledge of the problem that we had to address, it's quite evident that it's highly inappropriate for somebody to put a downspout directly to the end of their property, facing another person's property, and considering that a reasonable way to dispose of runoff water. It seems to me that we ought to be able to at least, and require a minimum of so many feet from the property line, from their property line, for discharge of water. And that also goes with the front yard. We've seen people, we've had problems where people have actually taken their corrugated line and taken it out with a pop-up at the end on town property. And we've had to tell people you cannot discharge directly on town property. But it seems to me that the minimum that we can do is come up with some sort of a footage. If you've got an 8-foot setback on both sides, you should be able to do a pop-up 4 feet away. And I throw that out. I think it's reasonable. Could be 3 feet away, could be 5 feet away, but definitely not directly to somebody's side yard. And I think that would help a lot of people. And it's not just that one property that we were involved in. There are others that worry about the discharge of property, discharge of water onto their land. And I know when homes are built, Dawn goes to great extent to make sure that I guess it's the side yard or front yard, that it slopes at a certain grade, and we follow that standard. What happens eventually is the ground sinks to a certain area, and that causes a different issue. And I don't think we're here to solve that today. But for the downspouts, which is the issue today, I think we could come up with a minimum of something and prevent people from direct discharge onto other people's property.
Dave,
Yes.
this is what I do want to be able to say is that Sussex County, whenever a brand new home is built, it is required to have gutters and downspouts on the house. If the property owner would not like to have gutters and downspouts, then the property owner has to provide to the county documentation from a soil scientist stating that the soil that house has been built on does not need to have gutters and downspouts, because the water coming off of the roof and so forth would not cause damage to the foundation of that new home. So gutters and downspouts are a requirement unless the other is met.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to go around to the committee members. Elaine, any comments?
I thought what Jim said was really on point, because getting it off your property and having the water go into your neighbor's property, I've experienced that in Washington. It's a bad idea. So that language has to be cleaned up.
Okay. Marcia?
So I would agree with everything. To simplify it and to get it moved forward, I would suggest we remove A, B, and E. And the reason why is I think keeping them in there is very complicated, and I think it requires a lot more research. And I think the ones we have, if we take those out, requiring either French drains, diverting to a well, and the French drains again. And I'm going to tell you why. I have a house right now that has a very elaborate drainage system like this, and I mean very elaborate. French drains with dry wells, and after a year they fail. And they fail because the soot and the runoff through the sandy soil comes through them and clogs them. And what it's created is a cesspool, basically, of water. So for those reasons, I think there's just too much research there. I think the idea for you is to get something through where we either have gutters and downspouts, we divert 4 feet from the house, no more than those, and look at those other things. And I don't think we need them. We have sandy soil. I think a lot of times it causes a lot more damage than it does. And I think staying just with the practical stuff of saying 4 feet from the house, no more than 4 feet from the side, coming up with some kind of...
What about burying them? What about burying them with...
I think you can bury them. I think that there's just a practicality of they have to work. And so I think that's kind of an enforcement thing. I think that's minimal. I don't think we should require burying them, because you do have the problems with they get clogged and then they don't work. So if they're buried, they need to work. They need to be performing. I think if we say they need to be performing at capacity, then we have an enforceable situation.
So it would be all right to say if we did leave drain pipes, that we secure them, that they've got to be secured. And I think what was the word, they've got to be performing, was the word you suggested there. Okay,
Yeah, they have to be functioning properly.
okay. The only thing I was thinking on those multiple options is that if you take the Bethany code, it's this or this or this or this. It's not prescriptive. So that was the only reason I put them in the document, is that they had offered multiples.
Okay.
So that would be my only thinking on that. If perhaps one of the others aren't available, what I wouldn't want to get to is no other alternative. Like for whatever reason, I can't run the drains, that there's got to be something else in it. So that would be my only thought as to what we recommend.
I think if they're all options and we require them to be properly functioning, it's going to be, the town's obvious judgment that they're not for reasons
Right.
that are apparent, and somebody's going to have to, and proper function would be certified by the appropriate professional
Right.
that the town, whatever, it doesn't have to be precise, but I think if needed, evaluated by the appropriate professional, skilled professional,
Okay.
such as a plumber, an environmental company. There's all kinds of skilled professionals, so
Okay.
I think that would be fine.
Okay. Jimmy?
I agree with Marcia. I like the downspout. Either burying it, but you're burying it at sea level, so it's not gonna go anywhere. I would be in favor of having it either 4 or 5 feet from the property line.
Okay.
Just gives it more space to disperse out.
Just disperse from the property line.
French drains, you have to pump that water somewhere. If you're, that's how they work,
Okay.
and they don't work.
I do think adding the requirement that Dawn suggested for gutters and downspouts, it seems to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay.
I've had houses with no gutters on them, and in a bad rain, it is just coming off every part of the house.
Why would somebody not put a straight?
There's a lot. So it's not a requirement.
I like the fact that you'd have to get it certified that it's not gonna run off.
Right.
The deck in there as well.
Okay. Is there any public comment? No? Okay, no public comment?
So can I make a comment?
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is that right now, the neighbor can take their downspout, they can take their piece of pipe, run it all the way over to the edge of the property line, right to the property line, and let the water go wherever it goes. That needs to be addressed with either no more than 4 feet from the residence where the water's coming off, or 3 feet somewhere, but we can't continue to have somebody running their water all the way up to the property line onto somebody else's property. We really need to address that and make a recommendation to the commissioners
All
about
the
it.
setbacks are basically 8 feet, right, on each side?
Yeah,
Yeah, the only thing is you could get a lot that
Corner lots.
was less. So you could get something that was less, I guess, right? So you would
Or
want,
if you're, the houses that were put there in the 60s, some of them are only 4 feet.
right,
Awful
right.
lot
So it'd be
more.
less, you'd only do half in that case. But I think
we just want to keep the water from going on the neighbors. Some people are just saying,
they're
well,
both gonna
it's off my property, it's your property.
right. That's what we have.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to solve. So I think,
Could we say no, closer than 4 feet from any property line or 5 feet from any property line? There's going to be very few circumstances where someone's house is less than 4
can
feet.
do that, right? So mine, I'm going to try and pull things together, is that we make our recommendation be that we include the requirement for gutters and downspouts in our code. And that I'm going to add just the two, I think if we can agree as a group. Downspouts should be connected to plastic pipe buried in the lawn area and emerging to point away from the house no less than 4 feet. Or if they cannot be buried, they must terminate no less than 4 feet from the property line and be secured to the ground to ensure they don't move. That's what I would suggest.
I would make that motion.
Okay.
I would second.
Okay. Can we get a vote?
I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused by that. So you're saying that the drains can be 3 to 4 feet away from your house?
They can, let me do it this way. They should not terminate no less than 4 feet from the property line. So if you've got an 8-foot setback, we're saying the drain can come out no further than 4 feet away from the property line. If that makes any sense.
I don't know how this addressed what Bill was saying, because if you are, they can point to your neighbor that's right next door, not necessarily to the street. I mean, some of these properties don't even have 4 feet in between them.
I think that's what we were trying to get to, is that there has to be at least 4 feet from the end of the drain to your property line. I believe that's what we're trying to get to. Is that everybody else's understanding?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
I just see, I don't know, I can't visualize it. I just see a drain, and I see the water coming out, and then it's 4 feet. You're still at 4 feet. It's still just going right down to the into your neighbor's yard. I mean, that 4 feet means nothing. So what you do in the city, but we don't have the same thing, is you would go underneath, and that pipe would go out to the street. I don't know. I'm not qualified without more background to give any opinion, so I'll just defer.
Okay. So I'll take your
Is
deferral.
Elaine abstaining?
Yeah, that's what I think. Are you abstaining? I think that's what I'm hearing. You're abstaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Marcia?
Aye.
Yes. Jimmy? And I'm also going to vote aye. Okay. So we'll make that recommendation. I'm not sure if it won't go back to planning and zoning or not, but we'll at least make the recommendation to the commissioners for their review. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is discuss and possibly vote to recommend to the town council amendments to the town code regarding green space requirements. And let me just provide a little background, and then I'm going to count on my partners around the table to help me here. But green space provides a range of environmental, social, and economic benefits, including improved air and water quality, enhanced biodiversity, and aesthetic value. It also plays a crucial role in mitigating the effects of urbanization, such as heat islands and stormwater runoff, while contributing to the overall health and well-being of communities. That came from the Bethany Code. I did not make that up. Just a little background, and Dawn, I'm hoping you'll correct me here if I've got it wrong. In section 185, table 2, there is a requirement for green space. Currently in the NR district, that's what I'm going to focus on first, it's 15% of the lot coverage in the NR district, with 50% in the front and 50% in the back. So if we use the standard 50 by 100 lot, that's 5,000 feet. If we use 15% of lot coverage at 750 square feet, so that would leave you 375 square green space in the front yard. So if you do the math, that's not very much. I'm also going to say, and ask Dawn for your feedback here, I don't think we have a good definition of green space in the code. I know there's some discussion on whether or not flower pots, and pots that can be moved around are considered green space. I would suggest they are not. That what we need here is something permanent, a permanent green space installed in the front yard. So I will also state that there is no regulation currently in our code that says a homeowner can't just put stones all across their front yard. It can be anything. There's nothing in the code that says it can't basically look like a parking lot, which I don't think is that desirable. It doesn't conform with our comprehensive plan or our town charter. So with that, I'll ask Dawn for your feedback, John or Jim for your feedback on this.
Okay, Dave, what you did say concerning the NR district is correct. It ends up being 7.5% of the lots now needs to be in the front yard, same and for the back. However, our term within the code does not say green space. It says natural plantings or open space. That may not make an ounce of difference. However, that's just how our current code reads. And so whenever it comes to natural plantings, my impression is it needs to be able to have been to grow, to be living and so forth at one point in time. And so, yes, we do have a lot of property owners who want to gravel the whole lot because I guess they don't want to cut grass or be bothered with the upkeep and maintenance. However, what I have seen just since I've been here, which has been not that long, that it seems that initially with the appropriate amount of gravel just seems to build and build and build to get the amount of green space appropriate. But if we could have additional help to possibly, and I know this is sort of a rough touch and go subject, but to be able to, whenever there's any sort of permit for any kind of project, also include the size of the amount of green space, so or natural plantings be included to at least keep the neighborhood looking like a neighborhood instead of a concrete jungle or a gravel jungle.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you. I mean, the only suggestion I would say, Dawn, is I do believe, and that's one of the recommendations, that we need to define green space as opposed to open space. So just so you know, the definition I suggested was such as vegetation, such as grass, trees, shrubs, or other plants which are permanent. Permanent as in planted, as opposed to pots. There may be a better word in there, but I did put that in here, so.
Sure.
And I would actually distinguish that it does not include pots, because someone could define permanently planted in a pot. I mean, I really think we have to be very specific that it includes permanently planted into the ground
Into the dirt.
surface. If we could say into the ground surface, into the natural ground surface, whatever we could do to define that.
Thank you. Before you start, let me just, so Jim or Dawn, any other comments before I go to the committee?
I did have a comment, and I was thinking about the driveway entrances coming in. Basically, everybody's got the ability to have either two 10-foot or one 20-foot. And anything other than that ought to be green natural plantings. And the only exception would be is if they have to add a third parking space, that would be subject to review by the town. So we would allow it, but we would come up with a way to minimize the loss of natural plantings.
It's very simply defined.
I'm sorry, what?
No, it's it's a very simple definition. There's no percentage, nothing else. It's very clear that it's got to be green space unless it's a driveway or a walkway. Basically a clearer way of defining it. So it's very simple and
then it diverts back to the code.
They still can't plant on the town right-of-ways, right, between the two driveways?
so that's a question
So nothing be put in the town right away except for your driveway, your sidewalk, and a mailbox, essentially. You may ask to put something else in the town right away, but it should be approved by the town. It shouldn't just be there. I think the main purpose of this, and from talking with Marcia, is people are turning their whole front yards into driveways and parking lots, and we need to move away from that completely. My suggestion is the front yards need to be permitted by the town before anything's done to the front yard, especially when you talk about pavers and gravel. They shouldn't be anywhere except for the sidewalk in the driveway entrances coming in. That should be it, unless they get special permission from the town.
Okay.
So to answer your question, nothing should be in the right of way but a mailbox unless it's been approved by the town, besides the sidewalk and the driveway.
Put trees
entrance.
and say, here's my green space.
No, that's not allowed.
Yeah, you're saying, right, so that town, that space, that right of way is the town's.
Right.
And you gotta, let me ask this question of Bill, so I'll use mine. Mine was there, it's grass, it's always been
So I
grass.
saw you had your area roped off. There's a couple people that do that around town, but at a certain point, probably around June 15th, we're gonna go out and say to those folks, you have to take those down, because it's public parking. And I understand about the mud and everything, but it's public parking. And we do want your grass to grow. And I was talking to my maintenance folks, we're talking about throwing in next year a mixture of ryegrass with regular grass, so the ryegrass will take off and it'll build up very quickly and help do that, while the other grass helps. But we can't have that continue through the beginning of the summer.
I went aside, I took it away, Bill. As soon as the holiday came, I took it away. Don't, no, I do. I agree with you. That's what it's there. It's public space. It's to be
Right.
used as public space. So I think we need, that's what I was asking, Jim. Is there, if somebody chose to plant grass and maintained it with the town's permission, is
So
that?
if they came to the town, the property owner came to the town and said, hey, look, in the right away in front of my house, it's mud. We want to rope it off so we can put grass in there for a couple months or a couple, whatever it is. The town would say, yeah, to me, that would be a great idea.
Right.
To do that. But for people just to go do things on their own in the right of way, it can't be done.
Okay.
And I think the parking requirement, even with the 20-foot or 2 10-foots, are met, with Jim's point, even if they have to have another third car, because the town code does permit cars to be parked in the driveway into the right-of-way, because you already have a driveway there. So I think there'll be very few times when it'll require more than 4 cars. I think the other thing to remember is if we look at most houses having an 18-foot setback, if they're compliant, right? So new ones would. Most that are older probably do, a lot of them. So 18 by 50 gives you a 900 square foot front yard. And then we're saying that the driveway and walkway, if we do 20 feet and 4 feet by 18, is 432 square feet, which leaves 468 square feet of green space. And we're saying green space has to be 750 square feet. So I just don't want us to get mucked up there.
You're saying by making this change, are we taking it away? Are we making it less green, if I follow you
Well,
now?
I'm saying that we have to word it in a way that it compensates for, let's just say in general, a 20-foot by 18-foot driveway. If we're all have 18 feet up front, which is really the requirement for green space. It's your front yard, meaning your
Right.
required yard, the 18-foot by 50 feet. So if we have 432 square feet associated with a 20-foot by 18-foot driveway and a 4-foot by 18-foot walkway, we have 468 feet left for green space. I think it's better that we, say a minimum of X for green space, because I don't think we can get 750 square feet if we have an 18-foot. So, but realizing also, and I guess it's just what kind of language could we put in to get this forward? Because
Right,
we need to move this forward. Which is, I would think at a minimum that there's 468 square feet, or 450 in the front, assuming the normal 18 by 50 foot lot. And then maybe you say, and if the front yard is larger, it is prorated proportionally to that. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I just think we have got to get this moving forward. So I feel like
So I'm gonna,
I'm
Wait a
throwing
minute,
out.
Marcia.
go ahead, Jim.
I I think the math is maybe a little bit off.
Okay.
I'm figuring if you got, let's say 20 by 18, all right, that's fine. That leaves 30 by 18.
Yeah.
Okay. So my math comes up to 740 square feet. Is that what you, Marcia, is that what you
You're
come up with?
talking about the front yard
Yeah, just the front yard.
is, say again, it's,
20 by 18.
If you have 20 by 18, let's put that aside. That'll leave 30 feet left on the width of the property by 18.
yes.
That comes out to 740 feet. That's 740 square feet.
You've not accommodated for a walkway.
Well, the walkway, we'll take it out for the walkway, but generally there's 740 square feet and we will accommodate for that.
Okay, so why don't we
that
just
would be-
keep it at 740 and say it can include a walkway up to 4 feet wide?
No, yeah, no matter, what 4 feet. And again, this is strictly for the NR district.
Right.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I've not even looked at this from any other district in the.
Why don't we go
Okay.
with the 740 in the front yard, just make it specific for the front yard, and it could exclude a walkway up to 4 feet wide.
I'm okay with that. I guess the only other thing I want to add is there any risk that somebody's going to take a side yard and put gravel down the side yard?
Sure.
The question is, do we want to use gravel as part of the driveway and parking? And Dawn and I had chatted about it. It's got to be somewhat, I don't know if you want to eliminate gravel altogether from going to that, but then you get into what else are you going to put down? A grass all the way down? My sense is it has to be defined and contained.
The driveway?
Meaning the driveway's got to be a contained driveway if you use gravel.
Yeah. So
So
what?
a contained driveway with appropriate barriers
Yeah.
defining the
Something
driveway?
it could be a 4x4 on each side to keep it. It could be a 2x4,
It could
but
be
something to
with barriers,
spread it.
fence.
That's what Jim's getting.
Yeah.
So in here, one of the things I had as part of the recommendation was stones, pavers, or any material other than materials described as green space may not be used other than walkway and driveway coverage. And I can put in here when in contained space.
In a visibly contained space.
Okay.
We can, that can be refined once it gets.
Right. That's
to the
fine.
commission.
What I'm looking for is can we get to consensus? And I think we're actually
Yes.
closer here. I just want to say, is there anybody else around the committee here that wants to talk? I want to open up to the public. Would
My answers,
okay.
questions are answered.
Anybody in the public want to speak to this topic?
I would. I'm a little confused. This is Cindy Souza. I live on West Street. I'm a little confused that you're saying that I would, if I'm rebuilding, I have to have a paved driveway now as opposed to gravel?
No, we're not
No.
saying that.
Because that's what it sounds like. Okay.
No, we're not saying that at all. Well, all we're suggesting is that a driveway could be stones, pavers. There's a requirement for impermeable, right? I want to make sure I get that right. For permeable coverage,
Permeable.
permeable versus impermeable coverage on the lot. But we're not saying that you have to pave the driveway. Did I get
Are
that
we
correctly?
saying-
Cindy,
Yes.
this is Jim.
Uh-huh.
What we're saying is that what it's being potentially proposed is that, yeah, you can have a loose gravel, a loose stone driveway, but the driveway has to be contained so that it doesn't spill over beyond the 9-foot minimum. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to have some sort of a containment barrier. It could be wood, it could be
Edging.
some sort of stuff, but you can still have it.
So what you're asking for then is to define where the easement starts within my lot for that 18 feet.
Well, that's up to you. Well, you're supposed to define the easement. The property owner should have a survey saying where the 18 foot is.
And my lot does that, I guess.
So once you show us where or show the building official where the driveway is, the determination is quite easy, and we can go by the type of materials that are permitted. Oh, and don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have to have a separate driveway license permit, don't we?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Don't we have to have a separate permit for a driveway entry?
Yes, we have to verify that does require a permit. 2 10-foot with 20-foot gap in between, or 120. That, if I'm understanding our conversation, all of those designs must be edged so that the materials for the driveway entrance and the driveway remain intact within those boundaries.
Right.
So are you going to make all of these requirements then retroactive to all streets in the North End? Because there's a lot of houses that are 50 feet of gravel right now.
Yeah, I don't believe we're going to be able to retro.
It's a recommendation to the commissioners.
We can make a commission.
And it's going to be up to the commissioners.
Right.
And can I just say, just for the record, I mean, I just want to go on the record to say, I know we started the meeting, Dave, and no, with all due respect, I certainly don't agree that we don't have, and so I don't want it to be on the record that I think that you believe we don't. I believe we do.
You do?
And I believe that when you combine looking at our code and the provisions that talk about driveways, green space, you go back to definitions that define definitions. And I think when you put them all together, I do believe we have controlling language that could currently prevent that from happening and currently let us enforce that. But I believe this is really necessary to define it. And I was just saying, if we had wording that maybe they are visibly contained space with barriers that define the driveway space and are at a level that prevent the driveway material from encroaching into the green space. So possibly something like that I think once we get it to the commission level and we have time to think about it, we can even refine and define more. So it's very clear with even some parent examples.
Okay.
Meaning you can use stones, clamshells, other loose material.
Right.
However, it cannot cover an area more than your 20-foot wide or 2 10-foots. And I think Jim's thing, without direct authorization written from the town in circumstances that are a hardship, meaning a hardship could be you have a house that requires 3 spaces. So we have to have 3 spaces.
Right.
So, but I think we're close enough to get it moving forward.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Second? Okay. Elaine?
Are we moving forward what you recommended, or there's a lot of changes? I liked what you recommended, but what are the changes that?
So I'm going to try and summarize it, and I'm going to count on you all to correct it. So the first I'm going to say is that we're going to create a definition for what green space is. That we're going to write that 750 square feet of the front yard must be green space. And that includes a driveway and the driveway and walkway up to 4 feet wide.
Well, wait a minute, are you saying the green space includes that driveway? Because that's more than, okay, good.
No.
Okay.
No, it does not
It
include.
does not,
Right, it does
okay.
not include, right? And that the driveway must be contained. I'll take your exact words, Marcia, you're going to give them to me, but the driveway must be contained.
Visibly contained.
Visibly contained, such as that it does not spread into the green space. It's the best word I can come up with quickly. If you have other words, I'll take them and include them.
The driveway must be visibly contained with appropriate barriers that define the driveway and prevent the movement of driveway material to encroach beyond the driveway.
Okay,
For instance, 6x6.
you're right.
As an example,
Whatever it costs.
correct.
Yeah.
6
Okay.
by 6.
Encroachment onto the green space. Okay. Example 6x6. All right.
Or flower beds, all that.
Okay. So that's, I believe, what we've agreed to as a recommendation. Elaine, does that provide clarity?
Yeah. I'll have a question, but I'll ask offline.
Okay. Okay. So I heard a first from Marcia, a second from Jim. Let's do a vote. Marcia?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Elaine?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm also going to vote in favor.
I do have one question.
Go ahead. Let's get the
What
questions.
about the side lot and the back lot?
Yeah.
Is that not even right now?
Can I say for right now, I think our focus is the front. I think we start to complicate it on the side, and I think we can put that in another meeting. Because I think once you start looking at back lots, you're looking at private space that people have that doesn't affect the appeal and aesthetics of the neighborhood. And so I think our focus right now is to get this under control and maybe look at the back space at a different time, because you are in the back. I feel like people have a right to, if they want patios or, you know.
Right. My question would be, could they do the gravel straight down that side lot?
That's what,
Like right up to the property line?
Right.
They can't do that anyway, right?
well, it's supposed to be a 20 feet by 10 feet deep, I think is the depth, right?
And you're limited to the number of parking spaces based on your bedrooms
Exactly.
or vice versa.
Okay, so they can't just.
No, they're not supposed to be able to do that, to your point, but. Elaine, how about your question?
I'd like to stay with everything, the front, the whole property, because I think that the way it was written, but and I thought we already passed what we were going to do. Are we making modifications again?
Okay,
No, I think that's a question. Are we making modifications again? Or did we pass what you had spoken?
no, we passed what I stated. We passed, Jimmy asked a clarification about side yards, and I think we at least addressed his initial concern with the understanding we may come back and discuss side yards, better definition for green space on side yards. But for now, what we really want to get is at least the front yard addressed and to the commissioners so that we can get this ruled on and move forward.
So may I ask a question again then? So the 750 square feet was supposed to be, half of that had to be in the front yard. So now you're saying a total of 750 square feet must be green space in the front yard.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Good question, thank you. Okay. All right, with that, that's all any other public comment from anyone else? All right, any other comment from the committee members? Okay, with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Marcia, thank you.
Second.
Jimmy, thank
I
you.
want to stay a little bit longer. I
No, you
apologize-
have to go to
I
work.
apologize for being late.
You have to go to work, that's right. All in favor? You just need an aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, no problem. All right, everyone, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.